Now, Sweden isn't the warmest country in the world, but I still remember back when I was growing up in a suburb of Stockholm, and as I said, it's not really warm, not even during the summertime. It gets up to maybe 75 degrees tops. And there was this guy in our neighborhood, which I think was the coolest guy I ever knew. And the reason for that was just because he decided to drive a Chrysler LeBaron convertible, even in wintertime, when everybody else in my neighborhood drove either a Saab 900 or a Volvo 240, tanks made and built for the Swedish wintertime. But the Chrysler LeBaron with the top down, not the optimal car to drive around in wintertime in Sweden, but this guy did it, and I still remember him today just because of that. He's a true legend in my opinion. And today we're gonna have a look at the Chrysler LeBaron right here and see if we can modernize it and turn it into something really cool that could potentially be built today. But of course we need to keep the original style and the feel and the vibe of the 92. I think this is the 92 that we're gonna be working on with the, of course, the not the pop-up, but the folding headlights, which they then removed in 93 or 94 with this facelift that I'm going to show you as well. Let's have a look at the generations here of the LeBaron, and this is not to be confused with the Imperial LeBaron from the 60s and 70s. I made a redesign on that as well right here on the channel, which I really like. I think that turned out really cool. You can go and check that out. Just search TheSketchMonkey Imperial and it will pop up on YouTube. So here we have the first generation from 1977, and just have a look at how cool this wagon is right here. I love this style. This is so typical 70s to have this boxy style right here. This generation came in this five-door wagon right here, and it came as a sedan, and it also came as a coupe. It didn't come as a convertible. That came first in the second generation. But what I love about this style of the 70s right here is I feel like it's starting to make a comeback, this type of styling, the sharp lines and corners of cars. We came into a melted cheese era in the 90s and the early 2000s, but now we're starting to come back, specifically American designs, which I really appreciate. While the Germans feel like they're getting more organic, American design is going back to this type of styling, which I really like. I think it suits the overall brands. Chrysler in itself hasn't really had a very strong brand identity ever, in my opinion. It's been very hard to pinpoint a Chrysler, what specifically makes a Chrysler a Chrysler. And I think that might be, hopefully they're changing that. You have the Chrysler Airflow concept, for example, which I talked about on my second channel. I think that looks really cool, and you can kind of tell there that that is a Chrysler. But here for the LeBaron, this was the first generation, and then boom, we have the second generation coming out in 1981, and this is the first time that the LeBaron actually came as a convertible. It's not the convertible we're gonna redesign today, but you can see that the changes here from the 70s with a very vertical front end right here, and the difference in the 80s model when we have more of a angle here or rake on the front end, which then stays the same almost but gets a little smoother in the 90s, or this came out actually in 1986. This version that we're gonna work on today with this front end. And then you have, of course, the facelift, which removed these headlights here that kind of folds because they were too expensive. So Chrysler thought, how can we make the Chrysler LeBaron cheaper to produce? And then one of the ways they did that was to create regular looking headlights, which doesn't have the same kind of coolness at all like these folding headlights, but they were of course a lot cheaper to produce, and that's what we see in the facelift coming after this version. And this is the one we're gonna redesign in this video. But before we do that, I'd like to thank today's sponsor, Atlas VPN. Atlas VPN was created to make the internet more accessible and secure for everyone, and it currently has more than 6 million users worldwide. Right now, they're offering a massive 82% off discount, which means you can get the most affordable online protection using my link in the description, and it even comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Why should you use use a VPN? Well, it protects your data online, and you get notified if someone is trying to access your data or has access to your email. Another reason why I think this VPN service is really cool is, for example, I had family from Sweden here the last week, and my brother wanted to stream a Swedish soccer match from the US, which he couldn't do. It was blocked in this country. So what we did, log into Atlas VPN and pinpoint our IP address to be in Sweden. That means that the computer thinks we're in Sweden. We can watch Swedish TV even though we are outside of the country. We can also save a lot of money this way because online services and products, they cost different depending on where you are in the world. So for example, a video game costing $3 in Israel, $40 in Switzerland. In that case, you want to pinpoint your IP to be in Israel and pay the $3 instead of the $30 or $40 you would pay anywhere else. This goes for concerts, gaming, airline tickets, and a lot more. Right now, they're running a huge discount, 82% off, using the link in the description. And this is a 3-year subscription for just $1.99 a month with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Time is running out, so make sure you grab this deal right now by clicking the link down in the description. Thanks again to Atlas VPN for sponsoring this video. As I said before, I think Chrysler is one of these companies that is probably the most, I wouldn't call it, maybe generic company when it comes to American cars and brands. They still haven't really figured out how to create a very strong identity for themselves, whether it be in the proportions, the graphics, or anything else. It feels pretty bland. It feels like you can take a Chrysler and just change a couple of things on it and it could become pretty much any brand you like because the identity is so weak. And I think if they want to survive, you need to have a very, very strong brand identity. If you've seen my video on my second channel on the Chrysler Airflow concept, it's called concept, but it doesn't really look like a concept. It feels like a production ready car. And I think what Chrysler is doing is they put out the Airflow concept just to get a feel for what people would think about it. And I think if you look at the front end of the Chrysler Airflow concept now these days compared to the LeBaron here, you do have a pretty strong identity in the front end with how the grille connects to the headlights. They still have a little bit proportional problems, and that goes for the Airflow concept as well. But that one thing at a time. Just figure out the graphics first, which I think Chrysler is currently working on to get done. And once you have that, you can start experimenting with proportions and so on. And that's going to be a whole lot easier since the Airflow concept is actually an EV. And when you have an EV, you can play around with the proportions a lot more and create a brand new identity for your brand that way. Now, going into this redesign here, what we need to do is what we always need to do when we take an older car from decades ago. We need to clean it up. We need to remove all the trim pieces that makes this an 80s or 90s car and try to clean it up, smooth it out, and introduce some lines and of course some graphic from today's Chrysler, specifically in this case in the front end. We're also going to change the side mirrors and details like that to make it look and feel more modern. I do love the wheels of the Airflow concept. So I'm going to pop them in here, and I think they will actually suit this overall design. And I love this color. This light blue feels very 90s, but I think it could still work today if we just have a different front fascia. I want to keep the rake that we have on the LeBaron from the second generation. The first generation was very, as I showed you before, the 70s, very vertical front end. We could have that today, but it wouldn't feel like a modern car to me. So I want to have that little bit of a sloping front end in the face, in the top part, and then an integrated bumper here, which makes it look a lot more modern than if you have a bumper that you can see has been just slapped onto the bodywork, which was the norm back in the 70s and 80s. We can't have that today. And on top of that, just work a little bit on the side to create some interesting line flow in the side of the car. Have the same kind of shoulder line going from the front end, but then create a little curvature over the rear axle to create some muscle in the rear end, because I want this to, I'm not sure if the Chrysler LeBaron is rear wheel drive. I would assume it's front wheel drive. It feels like it is a front wheel drive car. I'm not sure, but I want it to look as if it is a rear wheel drive car, and that means adding some muscle and some lines, some hips over the rear fenders and the rear axle. Other than that, proportionally, I want to keep it the same as the original, because that to me is what makes the LeBaron a LeBaron. That on top, in addition to, of course, the folding headlights, which we can't really have here in a modern version because they are illegal these days. Unfortunately, we can't have any pop-up headlights or folding lights anymore because for safety reasons. But I think if we pop in some Chrysler 300C or Chrysler 300 headlights here, it will suit this car, because that in itself, the 300, is a pretty boxy looking thing. So popping those in here along with the grille and new front fascia in general, it's actually going to work pretty well with how this LeBaron and the proportions are actually designed. And that's it for this redesign. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to thank today's sponsor again, Atlas VPN. Don't forget to click the link down in the description. They have a 30-day money-back guarantee, and they have, specifically with my link, you get 82% off. That's $1.99 per month when you sign up for the 3-year plan. But this deal won't last long, so make sure you click the link and grab the Atlas VPN deal right now in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.